So for today's session, we are discussing not just a reading disorder, dyslexia's deeper impact. So for those of you who are new to CPAC, we are Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. We've been around since 1983, and we are federally funded Parent Training and Information Center. Under IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, there is a requirement that all states have to have a Parent Training and Information Center. We happen to be the one for Connecticut. Larger states like Florida, New York, California, they have multiple parent training and information centers. We happen to be the one for Connecticut. And for those states who have multiple parent training and information centers, they will have their own name. They will not be called CPAC. We are a statewide nonprofit organization that offers free information and supports related to special education. All of our program staff are either individuals with disabilities or parents of children with disabilities.
Jovi, the interpreter just asked for you to slow down a little
Okay.
bit.
So how are we funded? We are funded through the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood Education, Connecticut State Department of Education, the Department of Education, State Family Engagement Center, and through the Down Syndrome Association of Connecticut. Our vision and mission is at the core of everything that we do. Our vision is that all families will have the confidence, knowledge, and understanding they need to be effective advocates for their children and to partner with professionals to ensure that children and youth grow and learn to their full potential. Our mission at the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center is to educate, support, and empower Connecticut's diverse families of children and youth with any disability or chronic condition, ages birth to age 26, and the professionals who serve them.
Our learning objectives for tonight is to recognize the common social and emotional challenges individuals with dyslexia experience, such as low self-esteem, anxiety, or frustration, and how those can affect academic performance and personal growth. We'd also like to understand how early identification, supportive instruction, and positive school culture can promote resilience, confidence, and self-advocacy in students with dyslexia. I'd like to apply strategies and perspectives shared by panelists to create more emotionally supportive learning environments that validate students' experiences and build on their strengths. Tonight, we have a great pleasure to have a facilitator for us tonight, Alissa Heizler-Mendoza from the Parent Engagement Coordinator for Decoding Dyslexia Connecticut. She launched her advocacy journey while seeking support for her son and later joined the Dyslexia Task Force. She was appointed to the task force to shape K-3 literacy screening legislation. She recently discovered that she has dyslexia herself, and she brings renewed empathy and passion to her work. In her professional life, she leads parent advocacy for AmniMed, I think I pronounced that right, and has decades of experience as a registered dietitian and certified diabetes specialist. Welcome, Alissa. Did we lose Alissa?
Yeah, she just came back in.
Got it.
I'm sorry. We're just having some technical difficulties.
I'm sorry, my internet went out and kicked me off. I
No
apologize.
problem.
Hope you weren't waiting long. I
No
forgot
problem.
to go on my phone. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. It's so nice to be around like-minded people and really talk about some of the challenges and come up with some collective solutions around dyslexia. I think most of you are familiar with this, so I'm just going to go through these slides pretty quickly so we can actually get to our panelist. I think you're familiar that dyslexia is a neurodevelopmental difference in how the brain processes language. And beyond academics, dyslexia has significant emotional and social effects. And understanding these impacts helps in providing holistic support educationally and psychosocial. Next slide. I wanted to just share a little caveat about a third grade child who has dyslexia, but is not identified yet. And as her classmates read independently and absorb new information with ease, she looks around the room and she wonders, why does it seem so easy for everybody else? Why am I always the last one to hand in my worksheets? Why do I have to reread the same sentence 5 times so this makes sense? The teacher calls her over to the desk once again. No one else has to do this, by the way. It's very embarrassing for her. She can feel her face turn red, she gets frustrated, and she begins to cry. And the teacher points out her spelling mistakes and asks, "Did you put your best effort into this?" She's thinking, "My best effort? Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how long and how hard I work and how much I tried?" The tears keep coming, the frustration continues, and the teacher tries to comfort her, but it's too late. She feels defeated, no one understands, and no one is helping. Later that day, she overhears her classmates whispering that she's a crybaby and making fun of her. And the teasing really cuts deep. She's overwhelmed and she lashes out and pushes the other girl and ends up getting suspended. Her parents are incredibly upset, and when she returns to school, no one talks to her, and she's labeled as a behavioral problem. I'm sure some of you are nodding your heads and can relate to this. I know I can relate to a lot of it as a parent with a child with dyslexia. But this is why early identification and support really matters. It can change a children's entire story. And we know that kids can get identified as early as kindergarten, which is quite incredible. But when they don't, it may impact their self-esteem and self-concept. I know with my son, even when he did get diagnosed, it was still incredibly challenging for him. He suffered from anxiety. Kids suffer from depression, and they react just like this little girl did. And they have a lot of social difficulties and stigma. I know my son was very isolated with his anxiety, and it was very challenging for him. He felt very stupid, and it was really hard for him to thrive and continue and feel good about himself. Next slide. So we talked about the age of diagnosis is very support, and the settings in the school environment and at home, and having a healthy peer-to-peer support can really help reduce the stigma and promote coping for that individual. Having the family and teacher connected and support and validate their emotional challenges can eventually improve outcomes. This will foster confidence and help them some of the psychosocial challenges that they face. We also know that there's a lot of strengths and protective factors that come with having dyslexia. Many children show resilience. My son is certainly resilient. Some are very creative. They're very empathetic. That's another thing my son has. He's very kind and nurturing and just really feels for people and thinks about what they're going through. And some of them really solve problems in different ways and think about things differently. Again, I just want to reiterate that the supportive relationship is really key. I know that is what really got my son through some difficult times in changing schools, was family and peers and teachers all working together to make sure that he was in a good place and able to thrive and felt safe where he was. That was big for him, feeling safe. And interventions and self-advocacy. My son also went to therapy since a very young age throughout the years, really helped him give the tools he needed and reduce the negative emotional effects that he experienced. So tonight we're going to bring together a panel of voices united by a common theme. We all want to raise awareness of dyslexia and support those who learn differently. And I am going to read this because I don't want to miss out on any of these great capabilities and expertise that the panelists have. So I'd like to introduce Amy Geary. She's a director of special education. She's also a literacy advocate and educator with over 20 years of experience dedicated to closing the achievement gap through effective reading instruction. She is Wilson certified dyslexia therapist and structured literacy dyslexia specialist. She has served as a teacher, a consultant, and administrator. Amy has led several roles within the Dyslexia Society of Connecticut, the International Dyslexia Association Connecticut branch, and the Reading League of Connecticut. She trains educators in evidence-based literacy practices and supports students and families in understanding both the academic and emotional aspects of dyslexia. Once again, she is now a director of special education at a charter school. Welcome, Amy. I'd also like to introduce Karen Gother, has been working with individuals with disabilities and their families for 20 years plus. We have just a wealth of experience in this room. She has a master's degree in special education and has taught students in K through 12th grade. She has received training through former Learning House in Guilford and through Literacy How in Trumbull. Karen has recently obtained certification in functional nutrition since she saw the impact of nutrition has on academic performance. Karen, that's something we have in common. I'm an RD. It's good to see. I would also like to introduce Robert Bosca and his wife are the parents of 4 children, 2 of whom receive special education services under IDEA. Their youngest son began receiving speech and language services through the Birth to 3 program and was later diagnosed with severe dyslexia at age 5. Throughout his education, Robert and his family have actively advocated to secure the services and supports he needed, but it was not an easy or straightforward journey. At age 16, their son transitioned to a specialized school for students with dyslexia and language-based learning differences. Now 18 and a senior taking mostly honor courses, he is interested in pursuing a career in engineering or business and is considering a gap year to further prepare for his next steps. Robert and his family wish that the district had worked collaboratively with them and encouraged districts to be transparent and work together with families so all students have an opportunity to succeed. Thank you, Robert, for your advocacy. I can relate to a lot of what you've shared. Tara Krimi-Buffa is a seasoned school psychologist with 22 years of experience working across both New York and Connecticut. She is certified professional counselor in Connecticut and is an ADOS trained to conduct comprehensive autism evaluations. Tara has extensive experience supporting students from pre-K through 12th grade, bringing a deep understanding of developmental needs across all school levels. Welcome, Tara. And lastly, we have Luca Basile. Did I say that right, Luca? Okay. Here tonight. And I've seen Luca many places before. As he came on, I said, wow, you look so familiar. I've seen you advocate for so many important legislative issues within dyslexia. So we're very excited to have the student voice. It is so important we have your voice, Luca. We're going to learn from you, and you're also going to impact so many others and help others. He is a student ambassador on the Connecticut Dyslexia Awareness Committee for the Connecticut State Department of Education. He is a proud 2025 graduate of Enfield High School. He was diagnosed with dyslexia at a young age, and Luca has spent the past decade transforming what was once considered a challenge into a personal strength. We love Luca's positive energy, and he is an excellent example of resilience and determination. So, as a person with dyslexia, and reading that was really hard for me, I'm going to be honest with you, especially at the end of the day. As a person with dyslexia who did not know I had dyslexia growing up, and the parent of a 15-year-old who has dyslexia, I'm really truly honored for you all to be here tonight. The conversation is deeply personal to me and many others. I'll try not to cry. I'm proud to be part of the dialogue that raises awareness of dyslexia, builds understanding, and highlights both the challenges and the incredible strengths within the dyslexia community. So thank you all for being here. I'd like to start about talking about lived experience. I work in patient advocacy, and we do a lot about lived experience, and it's so important that we learn from those who are experiencing it. So I'm going to start with Robert. You as a parent, how do you believe dyslexia affects a student's self-image or sense of competence?
Thank you, Alyssa. I can't underscore enough how much having uh, an accurate and positive view of your own capabilities can bring to the table. When that is squashed or impacted in some way, it is so easy for a young student in particular to see that there is a difference, as has been highlighted already on this presentation, that when you're different, people are moving at a different pace than you, um, then you can start to turn inward, and it can tremendously affect your self-perception, and then potentially your ability to take advantage of the services or any resources that might be available to you. Would you like me to give you a little bit more information about how maybe it's happened for one of my children?
Sorry, I was muted and didn't realize it. I'm actually going to come back to that, Robert, if that's
Very
okay,
good.
but thank you. Luca, I want to bring your experience into this and your perspective. How does struggling with reading and writing contribute to your self-perception and self-esteem?
It really contributes a lot, especially from the beginning when it seems like it's a curse and you're cursed with this like reading and you can't write, especially with me, I had dysgraphia. So it's like when you can't write and when you can't read, and those are like the main focuses in school, it really brings you down. So it's really important to have the teachers know what it's like for a student to go through, because for me, my teachers just never knew and I just thought it was me. I just thought I was behind. And so I luckily had a great family and an outlet in sports to lean on during that time. But it's really about too, now I'm trying to help so we could find people who don't have a great family, who don't have a great outlet and a healthy outlet. So it contributes a lot.
Thank you, Luca. And I feel the same way. We want to kind of help others, right? Because we know how challenged it was for ourselves. So I commend you on that. Karen, building on that, what kinds of emotional reactions like frustration, anxiety, or sadness do you commonly see in students with dyslexia in your experience?
I see all of those emotions on a regular basis, and depending on the child's personality, they can come out in different ways. When a child is sitting in the classroom and the teacher has read a passage and they're supposed to follow along, and the child is a couple of steps behind because they're desperately trying to keep up, but they're behind, they get frustrated, then they get overwhelmed, And sometimes it can lead to avoidance behavior, where they'll then want to leave the classroom, and then that becomes a habit kind of thing, and it becomes the anxiety feelings, and then they can be sad because of it. So I see all of those emotions happen regularly in the classroom, and I will often try to go over and then help the student, and kind of take on the frustration for them in a way as a teacher, to kind of slow things down. Like, I'll ask a question to help them catch up. Um, so they have a kind of an out. I act as the out for them, so it's not solely on them, because I see their struggles, not only as a teacher, but as a parent with a child with dyslexia. So I get all of it, from two lenses, but I definitely see those emotions happening more and more frequently, especially as our education kind of seems to be on warp speed right now. It's not the childhood that I had that these children are having. So that pace is just making it more and more challenging for dyslexics.
Great, thank you. I remember a lot. I have to go to the nurse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that, or I have to come home, I have a stomach ache. Those types of things are still very, very on my mind. So Amy, every student is different. In your classroom, what signs do you notice that might indicate a student has a learning difference or challenges? And are there quiet or not so quiet red flags people can be aware of?
Well, I think Karen really kind of hit it on the head, work avoidance. But I've also, when I was a classroom teacher, I witnessed a lot of students putting their head down. It seemed to be like they get to a point within the classroom and down their head goes. And what happens from the teacher perspective is, one, the student didn't get enough sleep, so now we're going to let them sleep for a moment, or the student's being a bit defiant and we've got to put our head up. So there's those couple of behaviors that we try to avoid within the student. Another thing, a reading disability is hidden. So most of the students that I've had are very articulate, and they can really come off sounding so ready to engage in text because of their oral language. And we find that that's where they struggle. They'll either avoid work by leaving the room, like Karen mentioned. They'll saddle up beside another student who can do the reading for them, because as soon as somebody reads, they'll understand it. And so those are just some outward behaviors that I see. One of the things, my primary job has been at the middle school, is that most students are expected to read silently. And so we may not know that they have a difficulty until they're asked to respond in writing to what they've just read. And that's where we see the written work. And that's a clear indication, because the spelling is off. And I've always said to teachers, you need to hear them read out loud, because you'll not know how they're reading well until we hear them reading out loud, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, that's excellent input related to this. So Karen, I still remember being in 6th grade and sitting around my teacher. She would read out loud at Field Elementary School. I have this vision in my head constantly, and being like, please don't call on me. Please don't call on me. And having so much anxiety around it, because I just hated reading out loud. And it was such a struggle for me, not knowing at the time that I did learn differently. So when students withdraw from the reading and writing and participating, how do you address that in a positive way?
So one of the things that really frustrates me as a teacher is when teachers do the popcorn reading, that they're going from student to student, and people have no idea in the classroom if they're going to be called on next. So to kind of combat that, I have talked to teachers about having the student with dyslexia be prepared with a passage and rehearse it in advance, so that it looks like it's a on the spot call out, but it's been practiced. So it takes away the anxiety, and it takes away the frustration, and it takes away the I can't do this. And the student is thinking about it over and over again, that they're not going to be able to participate, but then they're given an opportunity to participate because they've rehearsed it and it's more natural for them in that moment. So that's one of the ways that I've kind of taken the individual with dyslexia and given them a spotlight in the classroom instead of a moment of frustration and overwhelm and anxiety. So.
Yeah, I could have benefited from that. I know they do that for my son, and it is very helpful. He goes in much more confident and prepared, and he's not so worried and anxious about it. So I think that's a really, really good tool that people can use. And Amy, one more thing. How do you think your experiences, especially in the early grades, with success or failure, influence long-term emotional well-being for someone with dyslexia?
So again, I've had the privilege of working mostly at the middle school, and I get to see the students coming in the door at sixth grade, and those that are, they have 504 plans for dyslexia and those that have IEPs. And so those with 504 plans have typically been given the right instruction when they were younger, and the 504 gives them the accommodation of extra time if they need it, for writing assignments, audiobooks, of course, for lengthy reading passages, and other accommodations that really support them. Students that come in, either identified or not, needing an IEP, they're almost ready to give up from school. They find it very challenging. Though I think the only reason they're showing up from school is because adults are making them, and that there's peers there that they like. But when they go into the classroom, they almost always feel defeated. And it's the one thing that really brings me to the table tonight is I have said for years, before I ever heard that there was anxiety built around dyslexia, that all of my students, when I met with them one-on-one, to say, this is where you've come from, this is how far you've come, and this is where we need to go next. In a one-on-one situation, heartfelt, at the middle school level, depending on it didn't matter who they were, they all wept. And I was really surprised to see really popular kids that were athletic and just well-loved and articulate weep, boys and girls. So I so appreciate this night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. So Tara, I want to bring you into the conversation. Given your expertise and your background, how can parents, teachers, and other supportive adults help students understand their dyslexia and build confidence? And sometimes that's challenging to do for a young child. I remember looking for books and just things to really demonstrate to my son that, he just learns differently, and this is what's happening, and this is how we're going to kind of move forward. But I'm sure that's very challenging.
Yeah, and ultimately, the biggest protective factor has consistently been a child experiencing themselves as competent and valued and generally understood by at least one consistent adult in all of their environments. So in school, at home, and in the community. So each of those, there's a lot of strategies that could be put into place. So in school, things that work best is, offering multiple ways to show what they've learned, if it's oral or visual or hands-on, and, giving private encouragement and not public correction, and embedding their strengths into the classroom, giving them leadership roles, creativity, and problem solving. And at home, really praising the effort and creativity, not just the correct answer. And talking about dyslexia openly and positively, that they're big picture thinkers and they're innovative brains, and that, just affirming their identity daily and not just their reading speed or how well that they're writing. Give them daily space to shine in non-reading areas. So that art, that tech, those sports and building and storytelling. giving them areas to shine, and in bringing that into the community, and exposing them to successful dyslexic role models is really important. People who think like them and who are still thriving.
Hold on, Sarah, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just need to slow down for the
Okay.
interpreter. Go ahead.
And, nope. Yep. And the last thing I was going to say is just protect their safe space. So no performance pressures. So kind of what Karen was saying about not putting them on the spot and having them, knowing when they're going to read. So no performance pressure.
Thank you. That's all really great feedback. I know I could have benefited from hearing about this when my son was first diagnosed. So Robert, let's jump back to you. From a parent's perspective, how do you help your child recognize and celebrate their strengths rather than focus on only struggles? And I'm asking this question too. This is always a challenge for me. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you.
Well, I have had 4 kids, and now my youngest is 18. So we've been at this for quite some time. And one of the things that has really helped, it's been a journey, but exposing the student or the child to various experiences. Um, one of the things that my son has had the opportunity to do as we were, I come from an engineering background myself, and I spent quite a bit of time in information technology. And he said, I'm not quite sure what I want to do for a career, but maybe I want to kind of get exposed to software development, coding, that type of thing. So unfortunately, our district really didn't have anything available in terms of exploring transition things as they probably could have or should have. I spoke with a couple of former colleagues that I had worked with. One guy, he did very well, and now he was retired, and he was now running a food bank. And another guy was now running a digital advertising company where his whole company was writing software. And so we got together, and these guys helped my son from inception of an idea to build an online database for this food pantry. And so he got the idea, he began getting exposed to some coding, and going back and forth on modifying it, and doing prototyping, working on it better, seeing it fail, how to correct it. And after all of that, he was like, wow, I really enjoyed that. He also got an opportunity to do an online course with a Microsoft certified trainer on learning about the .NET protocol, if anybody understands anything about software. And he was the only, he was a 16-year-old student. Everyone else was an adult. And he was able to hold his own. They were all trying to transition from the older software development to try to get into something more current. So he got exposed to .NET and Microsoft C#, and he got out of that saying, wow, I think this is really a lot of fun, but what I do know is I don't think I ever want to be a software engineer as a career. So, but at least he did it. He enjoyed it. And he really enjoyed the banter between my two friends, because they were blaming each other, and they were college roommates. And so they've known each other for 40 years, and he really enjoyed the collaboration and the camaraderie. And he said, I really want to do some type of project-based work. So that's one thing he did. This last summer, he just did a experience up at Yale University where he got exposed to an exploration into entrepreneurship and business development, where he got put into some groups, and during the day they would receive instruction lectures on what it is to kind of be an entrepreneur. And they had to come up with a business plan, and they within a 2-week period at this summer camp, they had to try to figure out how they're going to pitch their product. And in the afternoon, after they got the instruction in the morning, in the afternoon, they drove around New Haven to talk with real entrepreneurs about their challenges, how they started their company, what are they struggling with now. And he learned so much and he loved it. And so he says, at some point, I definitely want to do something with business, but I think I might want to start with engineering first. And then he's also had the opportunity now to do a little exploration into some nuclear engineering. So experiences, the more experiences you have, the more you can say, I like that and I don't like this. And then so he's finding his way. And so I'm not sure if you're going to move on to maybe Luca at some point, but I sure would like to know if he has benefited from experiences.
So let's do a little. Let me just add this in, right? Let's go to Luca and let's hear what you have to say about what Robert just talked about.
All right, so yeah, experiences are definitely hard to come across nowadays because there's not, like, for an example, my school, the career center got shut down, so it was really hard to figure out what you really want to do, especially being dyslexic. You learn more from a hands-on visual standpoint, and it's really hard because a lot of schools don't really have that hands-on classes anymore. It's more book work, it's more driven to that. So I really benefited from my woodshop class and my cooking class and my I took an AP environmental class and all the labs in that were hands-on and you were really doing it. So that was really what benefited me personally and just getting out there in the fields and seeing what you enjoy. But during a school day, it is really hard nowadays to come across.
Thank you. I really like the exposure idea. I remember one of the first times I realized that I had challenges was when I went to college and I was in these big lecture halls sitting in the back with these big books and multiple choice tests. And it was like setting me up for failure, right? I did terrible that semester and I learned that, okay, I have to sit in the front, right? I can't just take a lecture that they're going to give me a book. I need the hands-on, right, learning, and I need kind of that one-on-one with my instructor. And I tell my son that all the time. You have to find what works for you, right? And sometimes that's exposing yourself to a lot of things and not saying, wow, I have dyslexia, I can't do that. So now he's taking journalism. And yes, you can do that. You know, it's not all about writing and reading, right? There's a lot of other aspects of journalism. And with technology, you know, you have that support nowadays. So thank you for sharing with that. That brought up a lot of memories. So Amy, I know we kind of talked a little bit about this, but kind of like looking at the big picture, how do early experiences, especially in the first few grades, with success or failure, shape students with dyslexia long-term emotional well-being, sorry.
Yeah, so research tells us that students as young as 5 years old in kindergarten starts to shape their development of who they are amongst their peers. And when they see that they're falling behind kindergarten, first grade, second grade, much of what was already been talked about, being the one student that gets pulled to the teacher's desk to reread this or fix this, or the spelling test that comes back and asks, did you study? See me, right? That's at the top of the page. They're already making their decisions on who they are within the classroom, and they already are feeling behind, and that really carries them with them. So it's really important that early intervention, early identification, early intervention, and I think that starts the progress for more positive outcomes. When students are successful in school, they like school.
Thank you. Luca, back to you. Again, talking about more social experiences, what emotions do students with dyslexia feel when they face challenges?
You feel a lot as a student with dyslexia. It is definitely from graduating, from going, I've had a lot of different experiences from in school to homeschooling to back into school, from transferring. I've had it all. So it's definitely a roller coaster of emotions and you really need to make sure your mental health is good because mental health is super important. I've always had a therapist throughout my journey to help me, which I believe everyone should have. And it's tough because you have to work through 2 to 3 times as hard as the regular student in some aspects just to be able to be average. So in that perspective, you're working that much harder a day and using that much more energy you have on the harder stuff. And now school, I've realized it's a lot of book work. It's not as much hands-on and stuff where you can excel at. There is still math and classes like that that I could excel at, but with the Wilson program too, I was thankful to get that. That is an intense program, so it's like you're using up a ton of energy in that, and then go to your other classes. And I would do work in the summer for that, and I would work all year round for that. So you got to be willing to take a little bit of sacrifice too for the success because it does come, and just the mental health aspect is really important.
Yeah, that was a great recommendation. Robert, I remember when my son was young and he wasn't getting services, we hired someone who was OG certified and we would bring him for tutoring before school every day at 8 o'clock. And he was in second grade. And it's horrible, looking back. And it was really an awful experience for him. But, he did learn and we wanted him to be set up for success. So, do you see students kind of missing out on opportunities because of the extra academic work or tutoring? And again, how does that impact their emotional status?
Yeah, actually, it is, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the process that my children had the opportunity to go through. They were trying to go to the public school, and there were folks that really were not trained in the services that they really needed. Even though, like for my youngest one now, he was diagnosed at 5 years old. Um, he didn't really get the OG training from that he should have until like quite a bit later. But my wife, and I just wanted to say that everyone on the call, I think what we need to all do, I just wanted to say, build your network, use CPAC, use some of these resources, and I think it might help you find the resources to make the journey a little bit better. And so as we did that, we did find an OG, Orton Gillingham tutor, to help my sons in particular. And they saw that, yes, there is a method and I can learn. And so what they were doing, they were ended up going to school during the day. And then at 3 o'clock, then they had to meet with the tutor to actually start learning. And one of my sons was really frustrated with that because he wanted to participate in sports. And he said, why am I wasting, I'm here at 7 o'clock in the morning, because I have to get dropped off a little earlier. And then I don't start learning anything until the tutor arrives at 3 o'clock. I sit in these classes and it's not helpful to me. And then he's missing out on really what he wants to do. And so he missed out on a lot of things. My other son, he's finally at a place now where the everyone in the school is trained in structured literacy and able to teach him. And so when he landed there for 10th grade, he said, okay, I can finally learn now. And so now he was trying to squeeze in what he said, 13 years of education, K through 12 in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, 3 years. And so he was coming in early, trying to meet with some of his teachers, ask for more work. Can you give me more? Because I have to catch up. I have to make up time. He would then be done at 3 o'clock. They'd do sports. He'd come back again after sports. He'd shower up and then he'd come back for evening study hall, even though he was doing well. And it wasn't a requirement. He continued to do it. And he would continue to go till 9 o'clock at night. And academics has been a real focus for him to try to catch up because he seems to see that as his lifeline in life. That is what's going to get him where he needs to go. And so unfortunately, to tie in a previous question, is that when there's maybe some other kids kind of hanging out and having some social time or something, he's like, yeah, that's a luxury. I'd like to do that, but that's a luxury. I want to go to study hall and go meet with Mr. So-and-so and really make sure I'm gonna, nail my physics exam or something. And so unfortunately, I think what has happened is that it became an imbalance of now an overemphasis on academics to try to catch up, and feeling inadequate. Like I have to do more now because I wasn't given it before. And so my son, although he seems to be doing well academically, it's a concern to me that I don't want him to uh, live life in an imbalanced way. He can easily transition if he can land a job somewhere. I wouldn't want him to spend all his time working and then not have the social relationships as well, because part of life is all social relationships as well. So this year he's in 12th grade, and so we're actively talking about this openly and saying, how can we try to use the rest of this year and summer to determine how we're going to get that balance of academics and saying, okay, that's good enough. And now there's an event happening. I will sign up for that event and go and hang out with friends, even though maybe I feel awkward or something. So anyhow, I hope that answers the question.
It does, and that balance is incredibly challenging. And I'm glad he found a place where he can learn the way he learns, and teachers that can teach him the way he learned. Okay, Luca, what strategies do you use to manage your emotions and challenges in school or with peers?
I built a lot of different strategies with my counselor and my special ed teacher along the years. Like the Wilson program really helped, extra time on tests, extra time on assignments, getting a little bit more help when I needed it after school, getting it explained a little bit more, getting it read to me, just extra little tools like that. But to add to what Robert said too, it is like I'm still trying to find that balance to this day. So it's still hard. And I mean, it a lot of dyslexics have a trait I've noticed that's like a workaholic trait, and it's like they'll just go, 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 go. And once you get into that nonstop, and once you are working, you can't get out of it. So that is another thing to definitely focus on too, to really try to enjoy. I've been trying to enjoy the semester and just like find the happiness to me with sports and with life too.
Well, thank you. Good for you. Networking is so important. I discovered decoding dyslexia when my son was diagnosed, and I haven't left. So it's in some way I'm always involved because I want to help others. And it's also important for my son still being 15. So Karen, we talked a little bit about a child being avoidant or defiant. How do you interpret those behaviors, and how do you respond to a child without harming their self-esteem?
Typically, when I see a child has become defiant, they've reached their capping point. Like they've reached that peak of it's beyond what they can handle at that time, whether it's because of the social pressures or the anxiety or what's going on in the classroom is too much for them to either comprehend at that time, or they're feeling embarrassed because of what's going on in the classroom. And so they'd rather be the class clown and kind of blow it off and joke around. And then that can be seen as defiance um, and just to save face kind of thing. So I usually in the classroom will go over and kind of quietly have a conversation with the student. And then typically that's the time when I'll take a group out of the classroom and give that child the grace to process what's happened in the classroom in a safer space, in a quieter space with less distractions, less students, less ears listening kind of thing, because you all know that students are very aware of what everyone is saying around them and how they're feeling. So usually it's not that they're really truly being defiant. They're just trying to save face. And so depending on who the student is, depends on how I address that with the student. But I will often put myself in a spot where I'm taking the hit for the student rather than them, to give them that grace. Whether that's asking a question to change the topic in the classroom or to redirect it, or to move on, like I said, to a smaller space, to give that child the grace. Because dyslexia, like we said, is a hidden disability. So just because a student can vocalize and express themselves in, just like any other peer, doesn't mean that they're not struggling inside to comprehend what's going on.
Thank you, Karen. So I'm going to close this panel, and I want to close it on a positive note because we want to be hopeful and we want to focus on strengths. So Tara, what are the strengths and talents of a person with dyslexia, and how can this be nurtured to build a positive self-image?
Yeah, and I think we touched on a few of these earlier. It's important to recognize the gifts that children with dyslexia bring into the world. They're very big picture. They see ideas and patterns first, the conceptual thinking, very creative, and their strength is in visual designs a lot. They're problem solving and innovative, and they show a lot of social awareness, a lot of empathy for others and their peers and their environment. They have very strong spoken communication and verbal communication, and that resiliency, and that, that grit to not stop, are a lot of the gifts that they bring into the world. And, things that we can do to support them in the educational setting, just encouraging a lot of visuals and those mind maps and charts, and allowing access to art and building projects. And again, educating in more ways than just reading, those hands-on, the visual type of learning, and incorporating it all into one for all of them.
Wonderful. Thank you all. That was incredibly insightful. CPAC, do we want to do some questions now, or do we want me to finish the slides? Just let me know what direction to go in.
Or Shaban, do you want me to start the slide and then we'll go into questions, or?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
Do that.
Just give me one moment while I share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? I just need to.
Great. Okay, so thank you, the panelists. We're talking about lived experience and emotions is incredibly challenging. So I really appreciate you sharing it very authentically and candidly, and I think it's going to help an incredible amount of people moving forward. So thank you so much. Just to summarize what our key takeaways are, we want to raise awareness of not only dyslexia, but also the emotional aspects that are tied to it. I honestly don't think people really understand how challenging it is, and all those psychosocial factors that come along with it, whether you're diagnosed younger or older. Secondly, that dyslexia not only impacts academic performance, but it can impact emotional support and well-being and how you feel about yourself. And overall, we really need to make sure that people living with dyslexia are identified early, they're supportive, and there's an environment that's positive to surround the student or the adult to make sure they're getting the support that they need. And like Luca, right, having others to talk to. I might hook you up with my son, right? I'm sure you've done a lot of that. I think hearing from peer to peer is really key. If you go on to the link that's shared here, you can see that there are K through 3 universal screening assessments. It's a fantastic tool for districts and teachers also. And that with, as we all work together to support and understand, I think that's how we're going to create change and awareness, whether it be at a legislative aspect or just be in the school with a student. But I can tell you that the Office of Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities. I always say dyslexia is such a hard word for someone with dyslexia. For more stories about dyslexia and how it's impacted students, adults, and families, they have a great website there. So I highly recommend everyone going there. Oh yes, we will share it. The click isn't available. Let's see if that works. If not, maybe we can put it in the chat. That one. I think the other, yeah. Oh, the other one too, the K through 3 literacy assessment site. Let's see if that's working. Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you so much. And I guess we're going to open it up to some questions.
I just wanted to say that in the chat, there is Shannon and her son Oliver, and it sounds like Luca really inspired Oliver today. So Luca, thank you for, speaking. And he said that Oliver is in 4th grade and we're eating dinner now. We heard Lucas speak and he wants to say hi. My son said his helper teachers help him so much. And he loves Miss Lori, his extra tutor for OG. And he loves playing sports too. So thank you, Luca, for being here tonight because this is what we do, right? This is how we help a younger generation too. And Oliver, we wish you the best of luck with your sports and all the great things that you are going to do in your life.
Luca, you have your hand raised.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you to Oliver, and if he needs anything, I'm always here. And I was in that same position too, so I turned out pretty good. So just keep pushing along, and that's all you could do. Just take it day by day, and if you need anything, I'll always be here.
Hmm.
It's wonderful. Any other questions for the chat?
If anybody wants to unmute and ask any questions or anything, that's fine too.
Not sure if you can hear me. I got a question for Luca.
Sure.
How we doing? I'm Corey Fector, special education teacher in Fairfield. I came out of my master's degree from Fairfield University feeling super frustrated that I didn't really know how to teach reading. So I did go and pursue the Wilson program. So I got certified, which is great. Just a kind of question for Luca. What was it kind of like for you when you first started getting access to an intervention like Wilson that you said was so helpful to you? How did that kind of impact you socially, emotionally to finally get that intervention that you kind of needed?
So, how are you doing, Corey? It was super hard because my parents fought to get that Wilson program since I was in 2nd grade. So I didn't get it until I was actually in 9th grade from the school, and it was a whole process. But it was hard because I had to work all year round. During the summers I met, there was like no breaks. Like I went did summer reading just to keep doing it, and it's a tough process. Like I would have an hour 30 class 2 to 3 times a week, and it was just like next, next, next. Like there wasn't any downtime. So it's hard, but if you really stick with it, I really got so much out of it. I could
Mhm.
see like I just speaking like in front of a class or just reading in general. You just learn everything, whether it's Wilson or OD or OG, sorry. There's so many programs because they all are the same but structured differently, but they
Mhm.
take from the same root. So they help tremendously.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. We do have a question in the chat from Sylvia. She is asking, as a parent, how do you navigate having a child that is emotionally drained at the end of the day and providing the extra support needed? Who wants to take that one?
I can take that one, since I wear both hats. One of the things I do for my own, well, for my child with dyslexia, but also for my other child, is just allow them to have that downtime when you get home and find an outlet for them, whether it's sports or dance or art or music, whatever it is, just before you dive into any homework. They've just worked so hard throughout the entire school day, just to keep up with what's going on in the classroom. So just to have that space to unwind and do what they're passionate about, do what they love, and then dive into any homework that might be looming over them that night. But just to really let them express themselves
Yeah,
in
I think it's
whatever
great advice, Karen.
whatever capacity.
And I also let them know, how proud I am and how
Yeah.
hard they work, because they are exhausted
Yeah,
by the end of the day.
absolutely.
And then we're asking more. But Luca, you have something to add.
From a student perspective, it is you're gonna be drained. Like I said, you're gonna have to work that extra 2, 3 times as the normal person just to stay afloat in some places. And I always would give myself 1 day of just literally nothing. There would be some days where my mom would even take my school computer and just like take it so I just couldn't think about it, or just a day with nothing just to recoup. And I'd always have one of those days per week, unless I absolutely needed to work around the clock. But just really just taking care and just finding an outlet. My outlet was sports, but I know other people with music, other people with hiking. I love nature too. So just finding an outlet to really recharge you in those extra time.
That's good advice. We have a question from Laura. I'm sorry, Lauren. How can parents ensure that their child is getting the instruction they need if we know that our child's special education teacher is not certified? Who would like to take that?
I can speak to that. As part of IDEA, all students in IEP are supposed to undergo 3-year triennial evaluations, but it can be more often than that. But I would say to Laura, if you have a suspicion that something is not adding up in terms of the amount of stress and output that the student is trying to uh, give, and yet you don't see like a result, that's like something. It might be a red flag. It might be a telltale sign that there may be some barriers that you need to identify. And if the reading teacher is not able to explain how they're going about addressing the reading, or in any other area, sometimes it's more helpful to have someone do some type of evaluation. Sometimes it could be a fairly it's like a literacy evaluation for reading, writing, output, and then, or it could be more broadly based in terms of like a neuropsych evaluation. We have benefited from outside evaluations to understand really in an unbiased way where our kids are at, and then try to then take the evaluations and try to work out a roadmap of exactly where are they getting hung up and how are we going to develop an effective IEP, so that they're going to get there. But oftentimes the IEP might say certain things are going to happen, but then unfortunately the progress monitoring isn't there to make sure it does happen. So very frequent check-ins can help identify where things are getting hung up. And I think one of my sons had a wonderful experience over this summer. um, Karen reminded me how she gives grace to some of the students There was this one particular Orton Gillingham tutor that met with my son, and the way Orton Gillingham is presented is in a diagnostic and prescriptive way. It's a diagnostic in that you're trying to present a particular portion for a little bit of a lesson, and as you're going through that, you're kind of diagnosing. Is the child getting it? Are they not getting it? Are they getting hung up on something? And it's oftentimes can be kind of like trying to walk on a razor's edge. It can be either too easy and they get very bored, or too hard and they give up. And so you have to kind of walk that fine line as you're kind of diagnosing where they're getting hung up. And then if they're starting to then shut down, then as Karen had said, you want to give them that grace and say, oh, you know what, that was a teacher mistake. I think I went a little too fast. You know what, let's back up and let's try to do this, and then try to another way to get them back engaged and help them build that confidence that they are able to follow you as a tutor or teacher. And then, but I think sometimes the reading teachers, if they're not certified, sometimes, or they don't have the training in structured literacy, oftentimes, even in the public school, unfortunately, as Corey had mentioned, he came out of school feeling ill prepared. So I think we need to really empower all of our teachers that way. But as parents, it's been our experience that it's good to have outside evaluations to really compare with what else is happening in the schoolroom.
Thanks, Robert. I would agree with that. And I would also add, Lauren, this is where networking becomes really important. I remember walking out of a PPT and saying, oh my goodness, like I need to learn everything I can about what's happening here because I come from healthcare, not education. And it was so foreign to me. So reaching out to CPAC and decoding dyslexia, and then the ORD, and Kristen, is it a hotline? I'm not sure what you guys call it, but it is so incredibly helpful. I've used it so many times and refer so many people to it. But just really trying to get as savvy as you can and really understanding what your rights are, right? And understanding what the experience of the teachers within the school have and their backgrounds and what the gaps are, and working to develop some collective solutions. But knowledge is power, and that's the way I looked at it, was looking for people that can teach me and looking for a support system because it was really frustrating and grueling, and so many people have been through it. So learn from others like Robert and Luca and myself and everyone here. Decoding Dyslexia has a Facebook group. I don't have the link handy, but I'm happy to share it in the future. It's wonderful, and we have probably 5 new members a week come on. So there's always people looking for information and asking these types of questions. And like I said, other resources also, but I think networking is really important. Okay. Oh, one new thing in the chat. Oh, thank you.
I am going to put the link to Decoding Dyslexia here for the Facebook link. I have also put the link for a survey. If we can please complete the survey, please, please, please. But I put the link for Decoding Dyslexia Facebook page and the link to the survey.
Thank you. And thank you all. I really, again, this is really personal to me, and I know so many of you, and there's definitely strength in numbers, and we all want to learn and support each other, and really increasing awareness of not only dyslexia, but the emotional challenges that adults and students experience is really important, as we shared tonight. So, any last
Thank you.
words by anyone?
I just wanted to say also that, we're happy to talk to educators as well. I think that sometimes educators they're trying to do the best by their students, right? And as Corey, pointed out earlier, that he didn't know how to teach, his students when he came out. And I think that the reality is that a lot of teachers are feeling the same way. So, reach out to the people here, reach out to CPAC, reach out to the Office of Reading, Dyslexia and Reading, Decoding Dyslexia, and be honest and open about that. What can we provide you for resources that are going to help you as well? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.